All right, everybody, welcome back to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And welcome back to the show. Ben is joining me, and Ian will be shortly as soon as his youngest decides to finally go to sleep. She is quite the little pistol tonight, so he'll be jumping in here shortly. But last week we dove into all of the different free agents, unrestricted, restricted, exclusive rights guys that the Steelers will be dealing with and quite frankly are currently dealing with as we get closer to free agency. And then tonight, what we wanted to do was kind of dive into a little bit of the salary cap stuff. And I part of the reason I love having both Ben and Ian around here is because they know this stuff way better than I do. And so we'll look into that a little bit, talk about where it's supposed to be, where it could be, but more importantly, you know, where the Steelers are going to be and look at some of these guys with 1 year remaining on their deals, because I think for all the heartache that many people are going to go through when Juju does finally move on and sign with somebody else, because that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a few names of guys with 1 year left that might really tug at the heartstrings of some fans as well. But so we'll get into that a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the Steelers' new assistant offensive line coach, who actually has more experience than the offensive line coach. But we'll get into that. And I received last week a very interesting email from a Ravens fan. And there's a backstory there, and there's a buildup, and there's some stuff coming down the road on this. But let's just say it should be entertaining, to say the least. Ben, kudos to you, and how are you this fine evening?
Oh, I'm good. I'm fine, man. Yourself?
Yeah. I'm good. I'm my wife got me this this box full of whiskey and bourbon shots. It's like 8 or 10 different bottles, and you just kind of try each one. And I'm currently working on a Alabama style whiskey, Clyde Mays, is what it's called. So it's okay. It's not anything I'm going to run out and buy, but it'll do the job this evening. And other than that, just freezing my ass off because it's about 8 degrees right now, and
good times.
Yeah, expected to get even colder this weekend. So, terrific. So let's just, in fact, let's talk a little bit about the offensive line coach first. This is a guy that named Chris Morgan, who comes over. He was with the Atlanta Falcons. He's got what we would refer to as the zone blocking history and experience there, outside zone. And he's got, as I said in the opening, he's got more experience than Adrian Clem, the new offensive line coach, has. And that's not terribly unusual to have something like that. But I think the other thing, too, is this guy has experience as a run game coordinator as well. What is, Ben, and I'll throw it to you on this, what is the importance of a guy who is known as a run game coordinator in this role here?
As an assistant offensive line coach, I don't know how much significance it's going to have. I don't imagine a lot. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't. I guess the theory is that Clem knows the personnel better, knows what their strengths and weaknesses are. But they're both Clem and Morgan are both going into a new scheme under a new coordinator. So I don't really know how that's going to work out. Typically, a run game coordinator will take a look at the opposing team on film, watch them, look for weaknesses in their game, compare that to what his guys do well, and then make suggestions to the OC saying, I think we should do this, this, and this because my guys do it well and they're susceptible to it.
Right.
And it kind of goes from there. But I don't know. I mean, that, for example, that's what Munchak did.
Right.
That's exactly what Munchak did. And that's why the run game was very successful. under Mike Munchak when he was still in Pittsburgh. And I don't know that Sean Surratt had that kind of latitude, and, the run game didn't click under Surratt.
Do you, are we to believe that with Matt Canada that we're just automatically going to some form of outside zone blocking scheme here? Is that just something that we should bank on, or is there something more to it than that?
Inside, outside, probably, yeah. The Steelers have fairly mobile offensive linemen, with the exception of Zach Banner, who has just always been a plotter.
Right.
You've got some guys that are pretty athletic, especially as 300-pound guys go. So, depending. I don't know who's going to play center next year yet. Neither do you. If Pouncey retires, that changes things a bit. It could work, though, is the thing. And I'm sure they'll still do some gap blocking in certain instances, short yardage, for example. But going to a zone blocking scheme allows the offense to take advantage of the defense when they're a little bit off kilter because there's been a lot of motion pre-snap, and they're still adjusting to what's going to happen. And throwing in those surprises with the blocks in a ZBS with a trap game, still have some pulls, but with a trap game,
all right.
Some counters, some pulls, some traps. It can work out well. It can lend itself to some success. A guy like Anthony McFarland is very well suited to that kind of an offense, for example. Right. He's just a guy that you want to get him a little seam, get him to the second level, and see what he can do. And that's really what they needed to do with him last year. Instead, they were trying to run between the tackles, and, he had a couple of glimpses where you thought that maybe he might do something, but he wasn't that successful because he's not a big bruising back type guy.
Right. Yeah. And so it's fair to say that's probably what we're looking at come the new season. So it does definitely make sense with Morgan now being on board here with Clem. I'd like to welcome Ian in to the show. Ian, we've just started and just talking a little bit about the new assistant offensive line coach, Chris Morgan, and just a little bit about that stuff. But
he's been around for a while.
Yeah, longer than Clem, and he's got some interesting experience both as offensive line coach and run game coordinator and stuff. So I like it. I'm curious. None of us will know this, but you got to wonder what he and Mike Tomlin talked about. Is he there to oversee what Adrian Clem does? Is he there just to assist, be a shoulder to cry on in the rough times? I don't know. But I'm curious to see how it all develops because clearly they've needed some help in this particular area for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's dive into the salary cap stuff. And Ian, since you're joining us, I'll throw it to you first. We've been told for months that the floor was going to be $175 million. There is some talk that the NFL could get TV contracts done, which could help raise that a little bit. Let's say that it even raises it to 182, something like that. Should fans expect, oh, geez, that means we can sign Juju and Bud Dupree? What really is the expectation here?
Bud, no. Juju, I'll say is a maybe, depending on what else they do.
No.
Probably not. But here's what I'll say.
I have him at $21 million over if the cap comes in at 180, and that's with the carryover from this year. I don't see either one of those guys coming back, and I don't want to sell the fans false hope of that possibility.
Well, Ian does. Ian's going to sell some false hope, so give it a shot, Ian.
Okay, My false hope is that in the first year of a contract, you can get it for a significantly lower cap hit.
Okay.
So if you gave Juju basically the same contract that Jarvis Landry got, which at $15.1 million a year would probably be a fairly steep discount for Juju. We talked last week how Juju's probably more in the market of your 16 to 17 million, somewhere in the range of your Mike Evans, Odell Beckham type deal numbers. Okay. We say he's above Adam Thielen last week, which was, Thielen and Brandon Cooks are both sitting at 16.2. Robert Woods with the Rams is at 16.25. So, he's definitely better than those guys. So he's probably sitting in the 17 million a year range. But if you give him Jarvis Landry's contract, which would be a steep hometown discount if you took it, then you could get him for like $3.5 to $4 million against the cap for the first year of the deal. That number goes up significantly in future years. Right. But just looking at 2021, and like I said, a lot of things have to fall in place there. Juju has to be willing to take, much less than his market value. But, depending on length and total term, you can get those things done, because if you look at, Jarvis Landry's total contract was $75 million versus Cooper Kupp, who was slightly above him, signed a deal for fewer years, and his total contract was like $47 million. So yeah, if you offer him the Landry deal at, $75 million total value, the Steelers do have a pretty good history of, paying guys at least a majority of their contract value. They're not going to sign a guy 1 year and then go out and just cut him the next year. That's not how they operate. So there is some security in that, and knowing that, you will actually get a lot more, but it's going to come down to guaranteed money. The Steelers have notoriously only guaranteed the signing bonus in their contracts, and a lot of other players across the board, not just wide receivers, have been getting a lot more guaranteed money in their contracts than just the signing bonus. So the Steelers may be behind the eight ball a little bit if they stick with that policy too, because the guaranteed money is really what it's all about.
So Ben, you're definitely in the corner of, even if it came up to that, Juju, just the likelihood is slim and none, right?
Yes. And I'll just summarize. The Steelers are in cap hell. They're 21 million over by my calculations. If the cap comes in at 180 million, if it comes in at 185, they're 16 million over. They have 19 of their own free agents. 19. They have depth at the wide receiver position, and they have needs elsewhere. Bottom line, I doubt they even make an attempt to sign him.
So would it be insulting for them to just say, hey, Juju, what do you think about this number? And it's way under what he's worth. I mean, do they even try that, or do they just say?
No, they're going to say, hey, let us know. Let us know what you get out there on the market. And, if we can match it, we'll try. And he's going to find something they can't match, and that's going to be the end of it. It's going to be very, very brief.
This week, Ben Roethlisberger was supposed to have sat down with the powers that be, and to this point, we do not have any confirmation that he did that. And, of course, in the current situation, that could very well have been just a Zoom meeting, and making it much more difficult to know when and if they talked, because obviously you don't see Ben at the facility. So he's the first guy with a year left on his contract, and I think many people know the math and the situation here, Ian, but Mark Cabali did a great job of breaking down, the 4 or 5 different ways this could go. I mean, what are you looking at? He's going to be 39 years old, and we know the history. What are we looking at here with Big Ben?
So the Steelers essentially have 4 options with all of their guys who have only 1 year left on their deal. Last week we talked about the guys who are going to be free agents. This week I assume we'll talk some more about the guys with 1 year left. So with only 1 year left, you can't take cap money and push it out into future years unless you actually sign the guy to an extension. With a guy like Ben, what they can do is essentially put, I'll say, quote unquote, dummy years on the back end of the contract, kind of like they did for Heath Miller and Troy Polamalu, which is basically you sign him to a 3 or 4 year extension with the expectation that he's only going to play this year and then is going to retire. So none of that money in future years is guaranteed. So the only money that then counts against the cap when he retires is actually the remainder of the signing bonus that you paid out in year one. So with Ben going into this year, he has a $4 million base salary and a $15 million signing bonus that's due in mid-March. So really they have to make a decision by mid-March on that one, because they're not going to just pay him $15 million and have it count against the cap this year. So I'm expecting if he wants to play, they'll do an extension for a couple years. You could slap on, it doesn't really matter what the salary numbers are if you don't expect him to play, because it's fake money essentially. So, we'll say we give him Tom Brady's deal, right? $25 million a year for 2 years. That's about the going rate for, aging quarterbacks at this point in time. Right. So you slap that on the back end of his current deal. You turn his $19 million total salary between roster bonus and base salary this year into a signing bonus. He plays for the base salary, which is a little over $1 million. So $18 million of that spread out over 3 years means that, $6 million counts this year, $12 million in future years. That means you save $12 million against the cap this year by signing him to a 2-year extension that basically costs you what you were going to pay him this year anyway. So like, that right there, he's set to count $41 million against the cap. You can save 12 of that. I mean, the max you could save is 19 if he's cut or retired. For salary cap purposes, cutting and retiring is the same thing. So yeah, for Ben, that's probably the most likely scenario if he wants to play, is you sign him to an extension and stretch that number out. The other options are cutting him or he retires, or you just let him play on his current number, which the Steelers have said is infeasible and isn't going to happen. So that one's out the window. Or you just ask him to take a straight up pay cut, which they've done in the past. Sometimes it's worked. Sometimes, like James Harrison, it didn't work. And the player's like, nope, I'll just let you cut me. And then we realized that was a mistake and bring him back 2 years later. But nevertheless,
worked out with Ike and Bettis though.
It did, yes. Yeah. Ike and Bettis did take straight pay cuts, so that is another option. I'll say the complicating factor for Ben Roethlisberger is that the bulk of his money this year, 15 of the 19 million, is due in a roster bonus, not in base salary. So if he's going to forego a significant amount of cash, he'd basically have to give up that roster bonus. Saving what Drew Brees did for the Saints, all his money was in base salary. So he said, yeah, I'll just, cut my base salary. But Ben's being in a roster bonus, that's a one-time check he gets in March, not a, per game allocation over the year. So, that's a big hunk of money he's potentially passing up.
Yeah. It's 24th. Yeah, it's a little over a month away, and it's got to be settled by then, and that's why they are scheduled to meet.
A couple of
go
points
ahead, Ben.
I'd like to make after Ian just did all that. The people I've talked to insist that the last contract that they gave to Heath Miller and to Troy Polamalu, those were not fake years. That they believed that those players would play. At least they may not play the last year of those contracts, but that that there was a good chance that they were going to perform and finish those contracts. They were surprised that Heath Miller retired when he did. He didn't tell anyone he was doing it. And Troy, basically, they just got to the point with Troy where they were like, okay, you're kind of a liability in coverage now. You're a box-only safety in a league that can't use box-only safety. And it's time to have you retire because we don't want to cut you, kind of a deal. So they basically talked him into it. As far as the point was made to me because I suggested the 2-year extension for Ben, and they said that would be groundbreaking for the Steelers. The Steelers don't typically extend players beyond what they think they can play,
right?
And they do not do voidable years. They never have. So just doing a 2-year extension for Ben when they only expect him, cat's out of the bag, kids. They only expect him to play this year if he plays at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So, basically doing a 2-year deal with years that they view as entirely fake is not something the Steelers do. They should do business that way. I'm not trying to argue that they're doing this right. Okay. they should do it this way. If it were me, I'd give him a 4-year extension and spread it out over 5 years so that I could take make room and take some bad cap medicine later. And, I do all kinds of different things, but that's just not the way they do business. They don't try and circumvent the cap like a lot of teams do. Okay. Drew Brees signed a 4-year extension his last year. He had 2 voidable years on his contract with no salary because they were voidable. And they were there entirely for the purposes of spreading out his signing bonus, nothing else. And, a lot of teams do business like that. The Steelers won't. So it complicates things. And it still brings me back to the fact that, yes, with those 3 players, with James Harrison, with Ike Taylor, and with Jerome Bettis, they asked them to take pay cuts to stay with the team. Usually they get to this point with a player, they just cut them.
Right.
But there are certain guys you just can't do that with. And my instinct still is that they are going to ask Ben to take a straight pay cut. How much that's going to be, I don't know. Maybe, and $19 million for a starting quarterback in the NFL is already low.
Already cheap.
Yeah, it's already low. And so I don't know how this is going to work out. I'm it's a lot for him to chew on, whatever they're going to ask him to do. And
well, and he claimed, he's on the record with Ed Bouchette essentially saying, I'll do whatever. Money doesn't matter. And that's, I'm not trying to paint him as money hungry or anything like that, but we've heard players say that in the past.
I mean, he's made $250 million.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm with you.
He's going to be getting some pressure from the league.
Yes,
for taking that kind of a deal. And the point they're going to make to him is you're doing a disservice to your colleagues by doing this, because now they're going to be expected to do it too.
Right.
And that's going to be the pressure he's going to be facing. He's not facing any financial pressure. This is not a financial hardship for Ben. If he never makes another $1, he's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And did he ever end up moving? I know his house was for sale at one time. They were trying to move into a different part of,
I'm not sure, but the house they showed on that YouTube show he did was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. I believe that was the one with the big 7 in the pool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I wanted that pool. What a novelty. Okay, so let's move on. Joe Hayden here. Also, will have a year left on his contract.
Do we want to talk about both Hayden and Nelson, because they both have a year left?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah. And now, granted, the ages are a little different. Nelson's about 4 years younger than Hayden is, but Ian, go ahead and lay it out then with how you would work with Hayden and Nelson here.
I mean, if it was up to me, I would see if Nelson would take an extension for a couple years, and I would see if Hayden would take a straight pay cut. I mean, like we said, we're going into this year $21 million over. So the numbers we're looking at for these guys are not sustainable at all.
Right.
They signed Nelson had I'll say a spotty at best career in Kansas City. We signed him to a 3-year deal, and he worked out great. Kevin Colbert takes some crap for some bad free agent signings, as he should, but Steven Nelson worked out great.
Turned out very well.
Yep. And he's only going to be 28 next year. Typically, and I've done some research on this, so typically cornerbacks hit their falling off point a little after 30, 31, 32 is when they just can't keep up anymore. So, Nelson's only going to be 28. You could sign him to a 3-year extension, for ages 28, 20, or 2-year extension, basically tack on 2 to his current one, but, basically get him through his age 30 or age 31 season, still capture some of those prime years of his career and spread this cap hit out a little bit.
Okay, so that's Nelson, and then you said Hayden a straight cut.
Hayden, he's going to be 33, and he's been a really good player for us. He's been in the league for a long time. But I mean, there were times last year when he just couldn't keep up either. So it's getting to the point, or actually, sorry, he's going to be 32 this year. So this will be his age 32 season. And like I said, that's kind of when you start to see the drop off with cornerbacks. If we had better depth on the roster, I would feel better about saying, let him retire or cut him, but we don't. He's better than whoever our third, fourth, or fifth option would be. I mean, we talked last week, Hilton and Sutton are both free agents, and now you're down to
Right.
Justin Lane and James Pierre. Pierre actually played okay last year, but I mean, I wouldn't put him in the starting lineup this year either. So, if we had more depth behind him, I'd be more comfortable with just letting him walk or, cutting him, letting him retire. But at this point, I think it's a pay cut. And Hayden has made, in his career, $116 million, so almost $117 million. So, it's not like it's not like he's hurting for cash either. That you could ask him to, take a little slash on his, $7 million base salary. Dropping $6 million in the last year of his career to get down to the veteran minimum is not going to kill him financially.
So, Ben, is this a dominoes thing where they've got to decide what they want to do with him before they can decide on Sutton and Hilton then?
Probably. But the reason they've got to decide what they're going to do with him first is they have to create some cap space. And there are a bunch of guys going into their last year that are probably hoping for extensions, or a handful of guys that aren't going to get them and maybe asked to take pay cuts. And I don't know if Joe Hayden is one of them, to be honest, because $7 million is really low for a corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well below market.
If he says, fuck you, and, tells the Steelers to pound sand, he can make a lot more than that in 2021 between signing bonus and base salary someplace else. So, it's a tough spot, and it's hard to ask him to do it. By the same token, the Steelers are in a position where they don't really have a choice. They have to make some adjustments to contracts here and there. It's going to be pretty insulting to him, though, to be asked to take a pay cut when he knows. I mean, he has to know they're going to go to Steve Nelson and they're going to say, "Hey, we need to extend you." What's it going to take? Because, I mean that. Basically, they played at a very similar level last year, and one guy's getting an extension and the other guy's taking a pay cut. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow.
It is.
So speaking of that, Ben and Marquise Pouncey have been linked forever as well. When he goes, I go, kind of a thing. There was speculation a couple weeks ago that Pouncey was really leaning hard towards retirement. And with that 1 year left, Ian, what do you do with him?
I mean, same conversation we're having with the other guys, right? I mean, he has an $8 million base salary. So you either say, hey, take a pay cut, or we're going to extend you for a couple years, because, I mean, center's one of those positions you don't think about, but it's so crucial to the offense. I mean, if you remember the Sean Mahan year, he spent more time on his back, and Ben got, Ben, the offense didn't run. Your quarterback can't play because he's got guys coming right up the middle at him all the time. Your running game doesn't work because there's nowhere for it to go. Like, I would argue that center is the most important position on the line, which is why I said last week that if Pouncey retires, center has to be our top priority in the draft, is getting a new center. And we've had a long tradition here of good centers going back to Mike Webster, Dermontti Dawson, Marquise Pouncey, and even throw in, Justin Hartwig in there was a pretty darn good center as well for some time. Mm-hmm. So it was, and with Jeff Hastings as well was the other guy who was in there for some
Hastings
time
was
too.
very good.
Yeah, Hastings was. He came over from the Lions, didn't he?
Yeah. So we've had some good center play, and we saw what happened the year with Sean Mahan. That was awful. So I mean, Pouncey is so much better than J.C. Hassenauer. It's not even close.
Well, and this is Pouncey light, but yeah, you're right. I mean, Pouncey is not himself anymore.
No,
in my opinion. But by the same token, it's that conversation we had before where $8 million is low for a center.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, they will not extend him because he's already talked about retirement. They're not going to extend a guy It's talked about retirement.
Point. Yeah.
So it's retire or take a pay cut or we accept this cap hit as is. Mm-hmm. Those are the options in front of them.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the guys that I think they need him more than he needs them. So I don't think they've got a heck of a lot of leverage in that conversation. Where with Joe Hayden, I think that, given the fact that I think he's in decline at this point.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get better. They have familiarity with him. They have familiarity with his skill set. He's still a reliable player. I would like to keep him around, but they may be looking at it from the standpoint, straight up replacement value. What is it? And that's a different conversation, which kind of sucks, but
no, I know, but
it's a business.
It is, and those are the conversations that they're having and we're having, and they're not easy. I heard Matthew Stafford was interviewed today, really for the first time since he asked for a trade, got it, and is out in L.A. And he was talking to a couple of journalists in Detroit, and he said the most difficult decision or the most difficult discussion I have had in my life was sitting down with the Lions ownership and saying, hey, I need to move on. And so these are not easy discussions. And I don't think anybody that makes it sound like you're playing the Madden video game and you just, click a button and woof, voila, a guy has a new salary or is cut and your little salary cap goes back to, where you want it. It's not that easy. And I speaking of that, I do want to take it to the next guy. David DeCastro. I think his is going to be a fascinating one. With 1 year left on his deal. Ian, is it fair to say he did not have a typical David DeCastro year this season?
That is definitely fair to say. I'm still of the belief that whatever injury kept him out of the first few weeks of the season lingered throughout the season.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know what that was specifically, but he was never himself this year. He got injured in training camp and missed a few weeks early, and just never looked right this year.
Yeah.
He's getting up there in years, but he's the kind of guy that I could see them actually giving an extension to because he may want to play a couple more years. He's 32 already, but he's interior
31.
Offensive line.
He's 31.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
31. Okay, he'll be 32 next year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he probably has a couple years left in him. I could see them giving him a 2 or 3 year extension with the expectation that he might play 2 or 3 more years.
Right. Yeah. I could see them giving him a 4-year extension with the expectation that he'll play 3 or 4 years, because guards can typically play into their mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
And I would extend him if for no other reason to lower his cap hit. And the fact that he's been consistent throughout his career, that's a guy I would extend, and I would get it done quickly.
Any chance, just kind of off topic briefly here, any chance you would slide him to left guard?
Why?
Well, I think Dotson was more of a traditional right coming out of college, wasn't he?
He was, but it doesn't. The reason that DeCastro plays right guard is the ability to pull to the left. As well as he does is rare.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't see DeCastro being moved. And Dotson doesn't move that well in space
he's a straight
yet.
ahead mover. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't move that well in space yet. And so they're not going to put him in a position where he has to learn to pull to the opposite side.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just throwing it out there. I don't know why it popped in my head. Before we get to
let's not forget too, the Steelers did basically completely flip their running game when they drafted DeCastro, because for years, I mean, with Faneca and, they even tried it with Kimuatu and other guys, the left guard was always the pulling guard, and the right guard was kind of the plotter and the road grader. And that was kind of how we always viewed it, that we were a, power run to the right team, because our talent was always at the left guard spot. And then they drafted DeCastro, and he was so good at going the other way. They were like, well, we'll just flip this and become a power to the left team.
Yeah.
By the way,
we'll run a counter this way now.
Yeah,
exactly. I would like to note that I did suffer a brief bit of PTSD at the mention of Kimiatu there, and his penchant for penalty flags.
Yeah,
but I
late hit.
Yeah, that too. He had a bit of
guy with the damn late hit. I swear, it's like he couldn't hear the whistle.
He was a pistol, man. He would
needed a
dive
hearing
in there.
Jackass. On that note, I'm opening another beer.
One of my favorite memes before memes were things was a picture of Kimuatu at Super Bowl 43, standing with his arms celebrating, surrounded by confetti, with the caption "Despite me."
Yeah,
it was just
right.
Because people forget he took a penalty at the beginning of that game.
Very beginning of the drive,
he took a holding penalty on the first play, and yeah.
Ian, I forget that at times, and that is, I knew where you were going with that, but just a reminder, you're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast, presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida, serving Broward and the Southern Palm Beach counties. Whether it's commercial, residential, multifamily, or condos, contact Deck Roofing today by visiting deckroofing.com. I take no pleasure in discussing this one, because
wait, we're still doing offense, right?
Well, no,
come on.
No,
come on.
Well, we've already done defense. We did Hayden and Nelson, haven't we?
I just like to stay with the offense, because I just noticed that there's somebody on the list that I really want to discuss.
Let me guess, Eric Ebron.
No.
Terrell Edmonds.
No, Mason
Offense.
Fucking Rudolph.
Oh, for God's sakes. Fine. You want to talk about Mason? Let's talk about Mason.
Let's do Ebron.
Okay. Eric Ebron has 1 year left on his deal. I am just going to throw this out there. I don't know what the future in Pittsburgh looks like for him. I would not be surprised if his future isn't in Pittsburgh, but I'll just leave it there. Ian, what's it look like with Ebron?
Well, considering Vance McDonald retired, which saved us another $5 million in cap space, and behind Ebron is now Zach Gentry, who sucks, and
no, you don't
Kevin Rader, who is
better,
but not more than a number 2 tight end. I mean, you have to keep Ebron.
I'd go with a respectable number 3, which Zach Gentry is not.
No, Zach Gentry sucks and should be gone. But because of the cap situation, him being on a rookie deal probably won't happen.
Slander on this show.
Just because he's a Michigan guy, Mark, does not mean that he's good.
No. In fact, it means he's worse.
He's a former quarterback, by the way. He went to University of Michigan as a quarterback.
Well, maybe he should have stayed there.
Be that as it may. Your point was, though, Ian.
My point is that given, this may be the position where the replacement level is the largest drop-off of any position on the roster, that there just is no starting capable replacement tight end. And Ebron's a terrible blocker, so even if he is your number 1 tight end, you can probably expect to see a lot more of the 6 offensive lineman sets, because if you're asking him to block, you're in trouble. That being said,
I will give Ebron credit for one thing. Well, he did try to block this year.
He attempted, yes.
He's terrible. But at least he puts in the effort.
Yes. That being said, Ebron caught 5 touchdown passes, which was the most by a Steelers tight end since Heath Miller had 8 in 2012. So, or 2013, whatever. It's almost a decade since a Steelers tight end had that many. So he did do what he was signed to do, which was be a red zone target, catch passes. He did drop some as well, but he was signed more as a receiving tight end, a receiving option, than he was as a blocker. He's 29 or he's 28 years old this year. do a $6 million cap hit, I think, or $6 million base salary.
Yep.
That's the kind of player
5.5.
age and
5.5 and a
situation.
$500,000 roster bonus.
Okay. Well, I mean that even if you give him the roster bonus, there's no guarantee he still makes the roster. Because
not at 500,000, but I mean, I would just about guarantee he makes the roster because who's behind him? Yeah. There's nobody behind him.
Yeah, that was the point I was getting to. Was there's no one behind him. The replacement value is not there. So you might want to consider extending him just for a couple, maybe 2 years. Can't do one. Do 2 years. I'd say extend him for 2 years, but not beyond like his current salary level of like $6 million a year.
Well, you kind of have to because the market drifts that direction. And I you kind of wait. You wait and see what happens with tight ends and whether or not tight ends are cheap, and then you kind of see, if the tight end market is stagnant, let's say during free agency, then you go back to Ebron and you say, hey, how about 2 more years for $12.5 million? as opposed to 12 million.
Throw in the half.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you structure it so that it lowers his cap hit this year by reducing his base salary to the veteran minimum and converting everything else into signing bonus. And maybe a little more. And you put the rest of it into salaries in future years. But yeah, the key there is, and I agree with Ian, you extend him to lower his cap hit. He's 28 years old. He is your number one. He's unchallenged as your number one because the players behind him are not good. You have to draft a tight end because your depth there is shit. This is another. Yeah. It kind of punctuates the point I was making before about the fact that even if Juju leaves, the Steelers are set at wide receiver. They have depth at that position.
Right.
And they have needs elsewhere. So I don't see them even offering him a deal unless he lingers in free agency and is unsigned and they can get him on the cheap, which he's not going to be. So it's over, guys. I like Juju too. I love the guy. I'd like to see him stay, but he's not going to. It isn't going to happen.
Let me shift from E squared, if you will.
Can I make one other point here? Actually, sorry.
Yeah,
surely.
But the
Fuck
Steelers
that guy. Talk over him.
The Steelers are not going to be the only team in salary cap hell this year, right?
Oh no, they're not even in the worst. No.
The Saints have like almost 100. Well, with Brees's restructuring, it's like 75 million over the cap. The Eagles are like 50 million over. They're as of right now, there are, in addition to the Steelers, 13 total teams. So 12 other teams plus the Steelers. So 13 out of 32 teams are projected to be over the cap, including like the defending AFC champion Chiefs at 22 million over. The Texans at 13 million over, who have no draft picks and a quarterback who wants out. So, I mean, there's going to be a massive slew of cuts, and there's just not going to be a ton of money to go around this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, obviously you have teams on the other end of the spectrum like the Jaguars who have a ton of cap space because they don't have any talent. But at the same time, the teams that are going to have to cut guys or slim down their cap space, I don't know if it'll happen, but there probably should be some kind of general understanding amongst the players union that, hey, money is tight this year because the cap is down. We might not see the contract numbers we've seen in prior years. Although, as we always say, it only takes one team to do something stupid and sign a guy to a massive deal. Your Joe Flacco's, your Le'Veon Bell contracts, those kind of things.
Any contract the Washington football team signed to any free agent ever?
Yes.
Speaking of them, really quick, did you see the story? John Gruden or his brother Jay was interviewed, and they were talking about the draft process, and he said we would do all this work, we would have everything figured out, we'd be on the clock, and Snyder would come in off the boat, make the pick, and leave. How frustrating must that have been?
Apparently not frustrating enough because, as I recall, Jay Gruden signed 2 extensions while he worked for Washington.
Well, that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, if it's me, I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Yeah. No.
Goodbye.
Right. That'd be where I'd right out the door. Anyway, I don't want to digress further. I want to get to this guy because it's going to be a tough one. Vince Williams, 1 year left on his deal.
Not getting an extension.
Well, Ben, go ahead. You just said he's not getting an extension. So does that mean he plays it out? Does he get cut? What are we looking at here?
Well, Vinny's 32.
Yes, he will.
And he's getting to the end. And I don't know. I mean, he's not due a ton of money this year, $4 million. All right. But I don't think he's getting an extension to play beyond this year. I think they're going to let him go into the last year and let him play it out and tell him we'll see. And then next year they'll decide if they want him to come back or not. But yeah, I mean, he's getting to the point where he's in decline, which, it's fair when you're 32 years old. This guy was a compensatory 6th round pick. He was practically a 7th.
Yep.
And has been a solid contributor his whole career with the Steelers.
He has.
It's
great
amazing.
Story. Great story.
It is. This will be his 10th season. This one coming up. So it's, shit. It's kind of a heartbreaker from my standpoint because
that's what I mean. It's been the hardest one for me to bring up tonight.
That guy is, it's a great story.
Yeah.
You root for the underdog,
yep.
But he's also been an overachiever. So it's like, God, I mean, you just want to see the guy stick around. By the same token, the game is evolving. And you need to have rangy guys who can run sideline to sideline at that position. And Vince is not that guy.
And we've said this before. 25 years ago, he would have been the ideal linebacker. He really would have been. He just came after his time.
Not even 25, 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's probably a better. Yeah.
The 2005 Steelers defense.
Yeah, Ferrier.
If he played next to James Ferrier, they would have been terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely
that's true.
Terrifying.
Vince is better than Larry Foote. I would say that. Yeah.
Yes.
More Michigan slander on this program. More Michigan slander.
But truth, I'm just saying, Ferrier next to Vince Williams, they would have been terrifying.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
Here's a question. Who came in on the famous X stunt to sack the quarterback better, Williams or Foote?
Williams, without a doubt.
Okay, all right. I'm just curious, just throwing that out there. Ian, what do you think about Vince? What's his future?
I agree with Ben. It's a combination of, just age, production, and everything, and who else you have, right? We talked about replacement value, that you have Robert Spillane, who is much younger and is an exclusive rights free agent, which means you can sign him for dirt cheap next year and, get, I don't want to say a similar level of production, but give Spillane another year in the system, let Vince play out this year. I agree with that. But is Spillane the guy of the future next to Devin Bush? I don't know, but I mean, essentially you've got him this year as an exclusive rights free agent, and then next year Spillane will be a restricted free agent. So, I mean, you can essentially, have that guy under contract for a few years that, he can be an okay stopgap. But he's much better at the smashing run stopping position than he is trying to cover Devin Bush's position. I'll say that
for sure. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Terrell Edmunds here.
Why?
Because I know you want to.
No, why? There's no point in talking about Edmonds and Fitzpatrick. We can talk about both of them right now real quick. Fifth-year option. They're both getting it. Move on.
Whoa. Really? Terrell he's getting his fifth-year option.
They have to decide this in May. You realize this, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and they can decide to give it to him in May. And yes, they'll give it to him. They'll give it to both of them. And they can change their mind the following March and cut the player.
Unless he gets injured, because it's guaranteed for injury.
Unless he gets injured, right.
Well, Minka's
RG3 scenario.
I'm not worried about that conversation.
Yeah. Okay, both those guys. I mean, basically, it's yes. Do I think that Edmonds made a lot of progress this season? Yes, I do. Did he still have some bonehead moments? Yes, he did. But he has too much potential. He has too much athletic ability to walk away from him. And this is not Jarvis Jones we're talking about.
No,
okay,
it's not fair. I agree.
It's not Artie. It's not either one of those guys. And yes, he had, let's say he had a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of a season.
Yeah.
You know, where there were moments where you were like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Granted, you didn't make the play there, you didn't catch the ball, but you were in a position to do it. And as long as you keep getting in that position, that's the guy we want to see. That's what we want. And there were some other moments where he whiffed on some tackles because he was trying to make a big hit or something else. I don't know what he was doing. Thinking about rapping. I don't know. But
the whole thing about wrapping up in the open field.
Yeah, wrapping up in the open field would be nice. But
well, the Pittsburgh rap scene tells me that he's better than Le'Veon was. But I don't know exactly if that's saying much.
It's
listen, no one will ever touch Chucky.
Mediocre as hell. Nobody will ever touch what?
Chucky Akobe.
Chucky Akobe.
Yeah.
Right. He rapped
backup center. Yeah, he had a song called Bucktown. It was awesome, man.
Oh. All right. Yeah. Did you guys ever listen to the Terry Bradshaw records?
I have the albums on the wall right behind me.
They were god awful. I mean, not even like you couldn't listen to them without going, what the fuck? You recorded this? But, you know, I mean, some guys like to self-publish records, piss their money away.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can't think of a better way to waste your money, a dumber way to waste your money, excuse me, than doing exactly that. But some guys want to do it. They're all about it. So
it's like they say, rappers want to be athletes and athletes want to be rappers.
Yeah.
So,
but hey, let's talk real quick about a couple of guys.
Go ahead.
At the same position. There's
right.
Mason Rudolph, who I mentioned before, who's going into the last year of his contract.
Okay.
And there's Dwayne Haskins, who was also going into the last year of his 1-year contract. So basically, the entire Steelers quarterback depth chart right now has 1 year left on their deal. Now, Haskins is a restricted free agent, or will be next March. So that really doesn't count because you can bring him back if he shows he's worth approximately $3 million. You can bring him back on an original round tender, which is a first, and you're fine. Mason Rudolph, as we've discussed before, sucks and will be an unrestricted free agent. And Ben Roethlisberger, excuse me, obviously. Ben Rudolph. Jesus.
Wow. This show's gone off the rails.
Will be an unrestricted free agent and also 40. So, basically, what's the plan at quarterback? Do you extend these guys? Do you not extend these guys?
Are you suggesting that the possibility exists that Dwayne Haskins could be the starting quarterback in 2022?
If somebody gets injured, maybe.
Well, okay, Duck Hodges started games for us, so never say never.
True. This is true.
Practice squad quarterback.
I mean, we are in a position where, and I don't think this is going to happen, but we are in a position where a Ben Roethlisberger decision that doesn't, coincide with what the Steelers want him to do. We're that close to having Mason Rudolph opening the season next year. So
But do you extend Mason Rudolph?
Not now. God,
today.
No.
Today, do you do that?
Oh, no. Not even close.
Give yourself another year to evaluate Rudy and see if he's a decent NFL player.
Do you do it if it helps your cap a little bit?
It doesn't help your cap.
No, then I just don't think you do it.
No, I mean look what Washington just signed Taylor Heineke for. Like, was it $4 million a year or something like that? I mean, that's even for Rudolph. That's I know that's dirt cheap for a
highway fucking robbery for Rudolph. Let's just lay it out there. Rudolph sucks, and $4 million a year for Mason Rudolph is highway fucking robbery.
Yeah, no, I see the point.
So my point is a whole lot bigger than the salary cap. It's that they're right now, today, there is no plan in 2022 for the quarterback position.
None. Zero. Nope. The starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2022 very well could still be in college.
Yes.
Could be in college, and it could be, Fitzmagic. I have no idea. I don't have a clue.
I would just say the starting quarterback is not currently on the roster.
In 2022, yeah. I mean, I hope he's on the roster because Rudolph sucks. And let me give you a nightmare scenario.
Oh, okay.
March of 2022.
Yeah.
And Ben has announced his retirement. He's moving on.
Uh-huh.
Dwayne Haskins sucked.
Uh-huh.
And so they're not making him the starter. They've decided they're going to go a year with Mason Rudolph and see what he can do. And they sign him to a deal as a starter for 2 years, let's say, I don't know, $18 million.
Yeah.
$18 million. Yeah, which would be cheap for a starter in the NFL.
Yes.
I will be fucking livid. I will be absolutely fucking livid.
I'm trying to think of I guess what I'm thinking right now is I would like to evaluate that scenario after the draft this year. And the only reason I say that is because I'm curious to see if they even draft a quarterback. I don't think they will, unless somebody just falls in their lap ridiculously, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Kyle Trask?
I don't understand that. I
don't understand the fascination with Kyle Trask either, or Mac Jones.
Jones,
please, no.
Watching him, I would take him a little more than I would Trask, but
okay, fine, but neither one of them are franchise quarterbacks. So ergo, neither one is worthy of a first round pick.
No, I don't think so either. And
no, absolutely not.
Quarterbacks always get.
J.P. Lossman had more upside than either one of those two jackasses.
Well,
okay, jackasses is the wrong word. Either one of those two prospects.
Right.
When you have arm strength questions like those two have, you are not a first-round pick.
No, that was
period.
The biggest thing that I evaluated Trask on when I did his draft profile is he does not throw the ball well deep at all. He's all arm. He does not get his legs or hips into his deep throws at all. And Jones is slightly better at it, but the overall NFL arm strength still probably not quite there. Do we need to go into any of these other folks on this list? I don't think we do.
Cam Canada, that's super important.
Well, hey, we don't have too many problems with the long snaps, so I
would sign him to an extension.
I'm gonna go out on I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that T.J. Watt will get an extension at some point.
I think he will get an extension, and it'll lower his cap hit, which will be nice.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that Jalen Samuels will not get an extension.
No, I think Jalen has played his last game in the black and gold.
I don't. I think he'll probably be around next year at the beginning of camp. I hope he doesn't make the team. What about Henry Mondo?
I was just looking at Mondo.
He's an exclusive rights free agent in 2022. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's really it. I mean, Chukwuma Okorafor going into his last year.
Yeah, I think they let him play out his deal and then see where things are on the line.
I think that's a really bad idea. And here's why. If he goes into your season, he's your starter at left tackle, which he probably will.
Will.
Even if they draft a tackle, they'll probably take Jukes and make him the starter at left tackle to start the season. And then he ends up being your starter in 2022. Now you have to pay him starter market left tackle money, which is, minimum $11 million a year. That's
Are you suggesting to extend him now?
I would extend him now. I don't think they will, but I
don't either.
I would like to see them do it. I'd like to see them extend him at an affordable kind of a rate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I see the logic in what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I just knowing the Steelers and the way they do business,
yeah.
I don't see them doing it, but I'd like to see them do it.
Interesting. So, guys, I'm going to segue over to this email I received, and then we'll get on out of here for this week. It's not normal that I receive an email from a Ravens fan. And at first, when I first started reading the email, I thought, okay, who's this asshole? Somebody with such little time on their hands that they feel the need to badger us. But as I started reading, I quickly realized that this wasn't quite the case. So this gentleman's name is Doug, and Ben and Ian, you guys can both relate to this because you guys are assholes.
Very hurtful.
Mean. Very much so. So Doug was talking some trash to two of his buddies who are big Steelers fans following last season. And so the two Steelers fans said, hey, put your money where your mouth is and make us a bet. And he said, sure, what's the bet? And they said, if the Steelers sweep the Ravens in 2020, you have to shave your head and you have to have the Steelers logo, amongst other things, painted on it. And so he thought...
Was it sweep the Ravens or win the division?
I thought he told me it was sweep the Ravens. I thought it was two wins. But I'll check with him beforehand. But either way, he lost this bet. And I can tell from just talking to him via email, Doug is a good guy despite his Ravens fandom. He's terrified. He's not looking forward to this, but he is going to live up to it, and he's going to take his medicine, so to speak. So not long after I got an email from him, I get an email from one of the Steelers fans, and you want to talk about a guy who's giddy to see his buddy get embarrassed like crazy. He says, can you guys get him on the podcast? And I said, well, of course, sure. And so I think next week Doug is coming on, and he'll give us a little more info as to how this whole bet came down. He'll tell us exactly what's going to happen. He's apparently got a very nice beard and a nice coif, and it's all going to be gone, at least the hair part, and getting this thing painted on. I guess they're doing it like February 26th or something like that. So he's going to join us for a few minutes coming up next week, and I give him a lot of credit. I do. He's holding up his end of the bargain because a lot of people would run and hide from losing a bet. So I know you two will be more than prepared to have some fun at Doug's expense, and I've already warned him, but I don't know that that's really going to matter.
What? Yeah. You warned him that you're a dick?
Yeah. It was somewhere between somewhere between Ben is an asshole and Ian.
It's not very nice.
No, and I said Ian will be a smart ass. So
that's factual, yes.
Yeah. So that's going to come next week, and I know he's listening to this show, and I told him, I said, hey, don't come on this week. Listen to the show a little bit, get a feel for what we do, what we're about, And
we're going to drink some whiskey and have a good time.
I was informed that bourbon is highly recommended, or whiskey. Beer is also fully acceptable as well. But I mean, these are three guys. They're just good guys. And obviously two of them are better than Doug is because they're Steelers fans and he's not. But be that as it may. So we'll have Doug on next week, and I expect it to be absolutely hilarious and a total shit show probably. And what else here too? Oh, I also wanted to mention coming up on the 17th of this month, Zach Banner is working with a few people. Alicia Clark from the WNBA and Josh Bell plays for the Pirates. They're doing a thing on anti-Semitism and white supremacy and stuff, and they're looking for as many people to get involved with that. If you jump on Zach's Twitter handle and stuff, you'll see that information there. He liked and retweeted what I put out on behalf of him earlier this week. So it's something that obviously in the Pittsburgh community hit people very, very hard with what happened at the Tree of Life and stuff. God, what was that? A couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
And so Zach is an incredibly huge man, but he's also an incredibly well thought guy. He takes things very, very seriously, and so he's putting that out there as well. So, gentlemen, I'm now ready to give you your parting shots. Ian, I'll allow you to take the mic first. Any parting shots for today?
It's going to be a really interesting offseason because not only with the Steelers having to get under the cap, but 12 other teams, plus there's a handful more that are less than $10 million underneath the salary cap and are going to have to do some maneuvering to if they want to be able to sign some guys or sign their draft picks. It's going to be close. Like, for instance, the Seahawks are only $5 million under, but they only have 47 players signed currently, which is less than a full roster. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this whole offseason plays out. Unfortunately, the defending champion Buccaneers have a ton of cap space, so they will probably be able to re-sign a lot of their guys and may make a run at it again next year, which would be unfortunate. But hey, the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. It happened. Tom Brady won again, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And so we move on to next year, and we've got our draft profiles happening on SteelCityBlitz.com, and we'll be following along with all of the salary cap moves as well that the team has to take arguably in the next month. Like, this is a big month because of the roster bonuses that are due shortly after the league year starts, and we have to get into cap compliance by the first day of the league year. So there's going to be a lot of moves that happen from a cap standpoint, not just with the Steelers, but around the league. And I will just, as my parting thought, is a word of caution: just because another player might be available for a trade or be cut by another team, we have to get our house in order first. We got to get our shit together and get under the cap before we can even think about signing anyone else or trading for them, whether they be, Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, which are pipe dream scenarios, which will not happen as much as we would like them to. We got to get our shit in order first before we can even bring in anyone from the outside. So don't think that Kevin Colbert and Omar Khan are asleep at the wheel. They got to figure out the internal stuff first before they can even look externally.
Yeah. And Ben, your parting shot for this evening.
Oh, that was a mouthful. I've already alluded to the lack of a plan for 2022 for the quarterback position. That's a lot of the reason that a lot of the beats are predicting the Steelers will draft a quarterback.
Right.
I do not think the Steelers will draft a quarterback. At least I fucking hope not, because
they will.
I mean, in order to do so, they need to move into the top 10, and because the options they'll still be there at 24 are ridiculous. Not to mention the fact that they have needs all over their roster: offensive line, linebacker, corner, running back. They've got quarterback, obviously, but you've got needs throughout your roster, throughout most position rooms, aside from wide receiver, where you're pretty damn well set and you're really good at drafting those guys. So you could take a wide receiver in the third and he'd probably be a stellar wide receiver because you're so good at picking them, which is another reason that Juju probably won't be re-signed, even though they'd like to keep him. We'd like them to keep him. He'd like to stay. It just isn't going to happen. And I hate to keep being that guy. I'm sorry, but it just isn't going to happen.
We tell the truth here.
Yeah, sorry guys. Prepare yourselves emotionally because it ain't happening. I'm excited for this upcoming draft. Obviously, they should be getting an additional 4th round pick,
right?
Compensatory pick, maybe an additional 6, but it'll probably be an additional 7. But 2 more draft picks for a team that needs depth players all over the roster. That's a good thing. The outlook defensively is still bright, even though they have needs at corner. They definitely need one there. They need to add a body. Even if they re-sign Mike Hilton or Cam Sutton, they need to add a body at corner. We'll kind of see what happens. I am concerned, having lived through the 80s and the period post Terry Bradshaw, going through numerous quarterbacks who were adequate guys, but not really like good NFL starters.
Right.
I can tell you that if you don't have a good NFL starter at quarterback, you can't compete. You can't. It's difficult. Super difficult. The Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer teams, those are aberrations. Those are not teams that typically win Super Bowls. And so I'm hopeful that something can work out here, that some guy falls further than he should and the Steelers can grab him late, but I don't see it.
There's a lot of time and you just don't know, but my parting shot is very, very simple. I thoroughly enjoyed drunk Tom Brady. Watching him get escorted off the boat and to wherever it was they took him was priceless. It's the first time he looked like a human being to me and not like an android robot or something like that.
Whatever. He got wasted. Yeah. So what?
It was just hilarious to me when I saw it. At first, I got to admit, I didn't even think it was him. I'm like, there's no way he would allow himself to be shown like that. And then I realized, holy shit, that's him.
When you're that drunk,
yeah,
that shit happens.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I've been there, and it just cracked me up. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. So for Ben and Ian, this is Steel Dad signing off on the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by Deck Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And as always, hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.
Fuck the Browns.